What do you think about how the media covered Gamergate?
Yeah, they covered it lazily, to be honest, with the exception of a few good, a few good journalists. Unfortunately, there just weren't that many, so it was mostly just reprinting of what somebody else wrote, and so that would be my criticism. It was just incredibly lazy writing.
Did you reach out to any journalists or media outlets who wrote articles about Gamergate to correct misinformation?
Um, I know that I had at least one. Was it a newspaper? No, it wouldn't have been the newspaper. I did talk to a journalist, like have an interview with a journalist, like in 2015. Um, but I want to say that it was like the local news in San Antonio, like the local Fox affiliate. But I can't, like, it's been so long, I can't remember. Um, but we did have that discussion, and then of course I criticized them on social media, responding occasionally with evidence refuting their claims and their headlines.
We had a lot of evidence on our side, and anytime we showed people evidence, they mostly just ignored us, like the media.
Yeah, unfortunately, a corollary to that journalists are lazy writers is that people are lazy consumers of media. So
Did the media's coverage of Gamergate increase or decrease your trust in them?
oh, it definitely decreased it. I mean, like I said, I knew before that there were ethics problems with in journalism, in particular in gaming journalism. I just expected that, um, uh, but I just didn't. I didn't until GamerGate happened to realize like just how bad it was, and that was in it wasn't just in gaming media, it was in mainstream media, and that was kind of shocking to me. That makes sense. I feel like I just contradicted myself.
If a journalist or games journalist who got Gamergate wrong is reading this now, what do you want them to reconsider?
um wow, that's a good question. Gotta think about that for a minute. If it's not a lazy journalist, right, and it's probably a lazy journalist, but if it's not, just keep in mind that passions were flared on both sides at the time. So there were definitely bad actors on both sides, but be skeptical of claims. Be skeptical of claims, especially that have partial evidence behind them. That seemed to be how a lot of anti-Gamergate operated, was by deceptively showing evidence, um, or only showing evidence that supported their side, their perspective. So if there's somebody, if there's a journalist reading or watching the stream or whatever, just keep that in mind. That uh, when people tell you about Gamergate or anti-Gamergate, they're only going to tell you what puts them in what they feel puts them in the strongest light. And so consider people's claims with a great deal of skepticism, and that includes our side too. You know.
Have you seen the Wikipedia article on Gamergate?
Oh yeah, many times. That was, uh, God, that was just an abortion. It was terrible. And I remember the edit wars too. That was crazy.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in the edit wars, but dude, that was news every single like week. It'd be like, you're like, we managed to correct the record on this specific claim, and then it's like, but then like 2 weeks later, the anti-Gamergate editors who were like super dedicated, like they had like no lives, probably on both sides if they're editing Wikipedia nonstop. But
Yeah.
no offense to anybody, I'm not demeaning anybody's contribution to Gamergate. I'm sure it was a very important aspect of the cause to try and you know get the truth out there. Um, I'm glad people did it. I'm glad people took the time and effort to do it. I don't want to demean that, but Actually, I'd love to interview somebody who was involved with that process, who spent like hundreds of hours of their life editing Wikipedia to try and
Yeah,
correct
just to
misinformation.
get it reversed by somebody that's got more edits than you, so they have seniority and yeah. The one thing though that the GamerGate article did make me realize was like how unreliable Wikipedia is. It blew my mind. Like once when I saw that, like I started to see problems in other articles, like a lot of them. And I began to realize like just how you just can't trust the information in Wikipedia. It's unless it's just like the most milquetoast thing, like it's explaining how tachyons work or something, something that couldn't possibly be political. Then it's just not reliable.
Would you like to see quote unquote the narrative on Gamergate change to become more neutral and or positive?
Um, I mean that would be nice, uh, but it's not going to happen. People that perpetuate the kind of hateful vision, the kind of hateful perception of Gamergate are never going to stop doing that. And so I would like it to happen, but it's just not likely to happen. There's probably always going to be a stink about Gamergate.
Out of character, and this is just completely not going to be in the book at all. I just want to ask real quick, because the chat's asking. If they want to reach you on Twitter, do you want to share your Twitter handle? You don't have to at all.
Yeah, it's crash_matrix.
Has your conscious experience as a human been made worse to any degree because of the negative media narrative about Gamergate? Well, you already talked
Um,
about your harassment, so I guess that's sorry. Go ahead.
uh, Sorry, what was the question?
Um, Obviously, a lot of people have bought into this narrative about Gamergate being sexists and harassers and evil people. Has this has this narrative that has become unfortunately mainstream to the point where it's even on Wikipedia, has it affected your conscious experience in a negative way?
Um, I mean, it sucks, but I think that it equipped me to be better at discussing things, better at articulating, better at researching, because we're so maligned that when I take a position, I have to be absolutely right. Because people that are critical of Gamergate will jump on, I mean, anything. If you have a spelling error, I mean, anything. So yeah, it sucks that there's this narrative that's so negative, and it bugs me, but it also made me stronger in a lot of ways.
You say that it's probably never going to happen. Why are you so pessimistic?
Uh, to be honest, it's because I know people. You may see the narrative change in 20 years or something. It's possible. It's just people people have an emotional people have an attachment to their emotional beliefs, and in my experience, that just doesn't change. There are a few people that will that can come on board, but not enough to change the narrative entirely. Like you can get a few people here and there over time, but not enough to get, in my opinion, any real traction on the greater narrative.